am definitely a cover buyer. At first, I really didn't want to be one because I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to miss out on really fantastic books because they have an ugly cover? After some time, I realized, yes, that might actually happen, and that was very upsetting to me. When I go into getting a book and physically picking it up, it's hard for me, even though I'm not looking at the cover while I'm reading it, it's hard for me to have it on my shelves, and that is a big deterrent in actually reading it. Now, I do read books with ugly covers, and I do love some books with ugly covers. Some of my favorite books also don't have my favorite covers. This list is really just to highlight 5 of my favorites because I really do have a type, and the more I find that out, the more I find I'm able to catch myself in picking up these books specifically because of their covers, and I'm able to realize when I am not picking up a book because of their cover, and I can challenge myself to read an ugly looking book with a beautiful story inside. This is mostly meant to just be a silly video. I'm also really curious because I know a lot of people are not cover buyers. They'll read a book and it doesn't matter what the outside cover looks like. I mean, I get that. It shouldn't. It just does for me particularly. Yeah, I'm curious to know other perceptions on this because in me being a cover buyer, I've been played the fool and read a book that I absolutely hated because it had a gorgeous cover. I wouldn't say either way is right or wrong, but because I am a cover buyer, I figured I would go over a little bit of my cover taste in just a fun fluff video. The first on my list is a book I immediately bought because of the cover. I have heard about this book for years, but didn't bother to pick it up because I thought the cover was ugly. And then boom, the 10th anniversary edition came out of Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, and I had to have this book. I suddenly was incredibly interested in the story. I suddenly started listening to what everyone had to say, and I was ready to get on board. Regardless of it being the 10th anniversary edition, the story is still the same. This follows our main character Cloth and his epic, which is told in narration by someone writing down his story, and it begins with him and his family on a traveling caravan and leads into him studying at a school of academics for magic, in which he is very attuned to and very gifted in. He also plays an instrument, which you can see broken down and splintered on the cover of this book, and there's really eerie, mystical moments in this. It's a very slow-paced book, but it also has a lot of intrigue. I really enjoyed reading this book. I know that there's a lot of hype around this. I would say that it's relatively earned in its classic status because it is a very large book that's doing a very large amount of undertaking, and I think that it's done fairly well. I would say that my main complaint about this book is that it's a mostly male-driven character surrounded by other male characters. There's barely any other gender representation besides the main male character, though I would say that Patrick Rothfuss does do a bit of remedying of this in The Slow Regard for Silent Things, which is a small novella that he created going into detail of the thoughts and storyline behind one of the female characters that is represented in this book, but I still think there could have been more. Very much so love Name of the Wind, but more than Name of the Wind itself, I love the cover. Then I have a book that comes up quite often, and that is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is the UK and Illumicrate edition. Specifically, it has the gold sprayed edges. This cover is gorgeous to me. I love that it has the reflective gold foiling, as well as the beautiful saturated watercolor blue in the background. I like the simplicity of just having the moth on there. I also just happen to love moths, and having a moth on the front and back of the book was an added bonus for me that I really needed because I love this book so much. I would say in this case that the inside and the outside match quite well. Strange the Dreamer follows 2 characters, Laszlo Strange and Sarai, and Sarai lives above a city called Weep, which has lost its name, and she's trapped above the city along with her siblings who seek revenge on the citizens of Weep below due to past transgressions. Laszlo is trying to find the city of Weep. He is then interwoven in this larger story. This book is a lot darker than I remembered from the first time reading it, and I actually do have a full-blown review of this book up above, so I don't have to go into too much more detail because yay, I did a single review for once in my life, and it's paid off in this moment because now I don't have to lose all of my breath trying to explain what Strange the Dreamer is because it is a ride. This next book I have is definitely one of the most beautiful covers I own. throne. I do have it displayed open face on my shelves, but due to my like camera angles, I don't know if you can often see it, but it is Daughters of Enri by Renike Omayo. Holy crap. I'm definitely a sucker for well-used foiling because the way that this book reflects light, where you can see all of the jewelry on the characters, is gorgeous. Everything about this cover registers as powerful to me. The look in the two characters' eyes, the way that they are both incredibly similar as they are twins, but also have their differences in their character design is just really, really beautiful. I immediately picked up this book on a cover buy, and I was very happy with the story inside. This follows twins Nala and Sinai, who are separated at birth in a world where the gods made a departure after a war in which the current reigning ruler conquered the gods, and the gods are now gone. However, it seems like there are powers inside of these twins, and an ancient prophecy saying that twins of Enri would end up taking over the throne, end up overthrowing the king, so all twins are destroyed. However, both Nala and Sinai are able to escape that fate due to being separated quite quickly at birth. Sinai is living in the palace right under the king's nose, and Nala grows up in a rural village where both characters don't know about their powers, but there's definitely something innately different about them. You can feel a connection between these characters. I like how distinct these two characters are from each other, and I'm very curious to see where this goes. I'm highly anticipating the sequel, which of course has a beautiful cover. Somehow, some way they were able to rival this one, and I'm incredibly impressed by that. When I do another list, I'm sure that the Daughters of Enri's sequel will end up on it. Second to last, I have The Beast Player. This is by Nohoko Uehashi. This is such a quiet, lovely, good book, and the cover matches it perfectly. I very much so appreciate this cover choice because I think that it better captures the tone of the story. There is another cover of this book that I feel might be more common. It's definitely the only option I've seen for the paperback, but it's this one. And while that is a really magnificent cover, I feel that this cover more perfectly captures what the story is and how subtle the world and the plot is. This follows the story of Eren, grows up in a family who raises and protects the Todo, which are a type of water serpent that are incredibly dangerous and lethal, but also incredibly important and are taken care of almost like gods. Eren's family is in charge of taking care of the Todo, but when the Todo start to die and Eren is separated from her mother, she goes off and lives a quiet life on a bee farm while discovering her passion for animals and other types of beasts, as well as a creature called the Royal Beast, which is like an amalgamation of like a griffin and a wolf. It's a really fantastically vivid image, and it is shown on the other cover, but I feel like this more subtly goes over the fact that she spends a lot of time alone. She spends a lot of time in the wilderness, and it shows that she plays music in order to calm these beasts, and it's just a really nice, quiet, lovely fantasy. I also recently picked up Beast Warrior. I have not read this book yet, but is that a stunning cover? It shows both the Royal Beast and Eren, and I am really hoping that the cover matches the tone of this book because things are about to pick up and pace quite drastically if that is the case. I will say one qualm I have with these is that this is a matte cover and it feels really nice and easy to hold, and while this cover is incredibly vivid, it's more of a glossy smooth that slips really easily. So I wasn't as happy with the texture of the cover, but the cover itself is indeed gorgeous. The final book on this list is a new read for me, and I absolutely adored it. The cover and the book's insides, its guts, are very much so synonymous. That is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. This cover is gorgeous and vivid and bright, and that is the book inside it as well. When you see this book, you feel excited, you feel joy and glory, and the look in Terasai's eyes is just magnetizing, and that is this book. This book is all of the things I just mentioned on the cover. You will get inside of the book as well. Terasai is a character who is growing up in an oasis palace which is invisible to the rest of the world, and she is being raised not only with a gift to be able to take and see other people's memories, but also to kill the prince. In order to kill the prince, she must enter his council as one of his gifted council members of 11 and gain not only his trust but his love, and then kill him. Terasai is compelled to do this by the lady who is her mother, but she refers to as the lady due to her cold and distant demeanor. She grows up away from her and is constantly craving affection, has no family other than herself and her father, who is a captured, enslaved, almost djinn-like creature. Really interesting plot. There's a lot to it. Not a war, but a peace treaty that has some really horrible side effects, including children being sacrificed each year to an underworld. And while they have the chance to journey out, many don't. And that is definitely another larger part of the plot that I found really interesting and engaging. This is definitely a found family with lots of wonderful, beautiful character relationships, as well as ace representation, and I really enjoyed it. The book was the first thing I saw, and I'm so glad to say that its insides match the outsides. It is now on my favorite shelf and has no chance of being dislodged from there. I also, of course, have to admit that, again, we are seeing the use of really clever foiling here in both the font choice and the jewelry. Definitely highly appreciate the art. Both the front cover, the back cover, and even the side paneling has some really fantastic illustrations and color schemes that I adore. Okay, that is the end of my top favorite book covers. Again, I'm super interested in hearing what your favorite book covers are, or if book covers even matter to you. I don't have to have super vivid books, but these are just the books that stand out because they just go the extra mile. And I also will take the time to look up the artists for each cover if I can find them, and I'll list them down below alongside their book counterparts. I hope you enjoyed this, and regardless of if you did or not, I hope you're enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are, and until next time, bye! Fluff can be fun. Oh no. Belle! Nala and who? Sorry, I am relatively distracted by my cats making out in the corner. They're just really like passion licking.